Chapter 6 of The Whipping Boy. It's called In Which the Plot Thickens. Wisps of fog clung like tattered rags to the trees, and then the forest cleared. But so thick were the pines that the morning sun barely touched the ground. Hold-your-nose Billy pushed aside a low branch, revealing a rickety timbered hut with a molded thatch roof. "There's our castle, your young majesty," he said, chuckling. "Accept our hospitality. I hope you won't mind sleeping on the floor." The floor was hard-packed dirt. Braided garlic bulbs hung like knotted ropes from the rafters. "I'm hungry," announced Prince Brat. "And feast you will," said Hold-your-nose Billy. "Cutwater, serve him up some of our finest bread and herring." Jemmy had made many a meal on bread and herring when he was in luck and felt hungry enough to ask for seconds. Prince Brat bared his teeth. "I'd sooner eat mud." He reached for the wicker basket, but Cutwater snatched it back. "Ah, what we got here?" muttered the bone-thin man, and threw back the lid. "Roll your eyes at this, Billy. Meat pies, looks like, and fruit tarts, and some roast pheasant. We'll eat like kings." "Hands off, that's mine," the prince cried out. "That was yours," yapped Cutwater. "Oh," Jemmy thought. Hadn't the prince run away in royal style? He had even brought a china plate, a silver spoon, and a silver knife for himself. Digging around deeper in the basket, the garlicky outlaw called out to Cutwater, "Bring the lantern closer. What's this?" In the gloom of the hut, the big man lifted out a golden crown. And here's a picture of the boys when they got captured by the outlaws in the forest. You can see the fog, wisps of fog. "That's mine," bleated the prince. "That was yours," corrected Hold-your-nose Billy, placing the crown on the tangled red nest of his hair. "Prince Hold-your-nose Billy," Cutwater burst out joyously. He began to scratch himself as if his shirt were crawling with fleas, which Jemmy thought it probably was. "We're dog rich." "That crown a trifle," scoffed Hold-your-nose Billy. "We can be richer than dog rich." The empty-headed prince, Jemmy thought. Why had he brought along his crown? To put it on his head and expect vagabonds and cutthroats to fall to their knees? The big, raw-faced outlaw grabbed Prince Brat off the ground and took the heft of him as if he were weighing a sack of potatoes. "£55 by my reckoning," he said. "We'll write the king a command, Cutwater. £55 of gold coin in trade for this royal tadpole." And now we're on to Chapter 7 of The Whipping Boy. It's called Being an Account of a Great Mix-Up. Cutwater rummaged around in a black oak chest of stolen goods. Handkerchiefs flew out like soiled white doves, worn shoes, ladies' combs, a cowbell, a heap of junk, really. They'd had lean pickings. And this raggedy pair of highwaymen, Jemmy thought, might not be so smart and clever as the song sellers made out. "Here's a scrap of paper, Billy," said Cutwater, finding it in the pocket of a stolen coat. "But how are we going to do the scribblement? We can't even write." "I've seen it done. Sharpen us a hawk's feather, Cutwater." "I'm hungry," complained the prince. "I'll have a veal pie, sir." Hold-your-nose Billy ignored him. He poked around for a beetroot and squeezed out the juice with his bare hand. It dripped like blood onto a china plate. "There's the ink for you, Prince. Take the hawk's feather and scratch out our message." Prince Brat folded his arms. "I don't take orders from curs and villains." "Think of your pa," said Hold-your-nose Billy. "He'll be ever so much obliged to know you're safe and hearty." "I told you I'm hungry." "You won't eat a bean till you do us the document." "But I can't write," blurted out Prince Brat. "And crows can't fly," erupted the big outlaw with a blast of garlicky breath. "You're a prince. Kings and such are learned to read and write as soon as they tumble out of the cradle. Don't think you can pull the wool out over our eyes. Hop to it." "But I can't so much as scratch my own name." Jemmy shot a calculating glance at Prince Brat. His pesky hide hardly seemed worth saving, but a scheme had leapt into his head. He might be able to trick these mangy outlaws into letting the prince go, and Jemmy would be rid of Prince Brat once and for all. Give me the hawk's quill, and I'll write the words, he announced. That's right, Prince Brat chimed in. My whipping boy knows his letters. Fall to Jemmy from the streets. Hold on, said Hold-You-Nose Billy, his sharp gaze flicking from one boy to another. This ignorant whipping boy knows his letters, and the royal prince can't sign his own name. Something's amiss here. What are you thinking, Billy? Asked Cutwater. I'm thinking these lads have mixed themselves up to flummox us. Jemmy lifted his chin arrogantly and tried to look as prince-like as possible. Nonsense! I'm a mere whipping boy. The big man rumbled up a laugh, showing a mouthful of yellow teeth. You take us for bedrock numbskulls? Certain as eggs is eggs, you're the prince, the genuine straight up and down royal highness. Prince Brat's face turned red as a hot iron. That ratty street orphan, he bellowed. That low-born... Silence, Jemmy commanded. Can't you see the game is up? They're on to us. Hold your tongue. But I'm his royal highness, said the prince. Ah, Jemmy thought, this haughty prince didn't have the sense of a gnat. Couldn't he see a plan afoot? Save your breath, snapped Jemmy. Stop giving yourself air, you witless servant boy. Servant boy? How dare you address me? Bag your head, snapped Hold-You-Nose Billy. Give him a kick, Cutwater, if we hear another peep out of him. Hand me the hawk's feather, said Jemmy, and I'll write my papa the king. Chapter 8 is called The Ransom Note. Hold-You-Nose Billy tilted the princely crown on his head. What have you written down so far? Jemmy glanced up from the sheet of paper. To the king's most sacred majesty, dear papa. Aye, that sounds proper respectful. What else? Our captors are loyal subjects, but scoundrels by trade. Don't cross them. Make them a mite stronger, said the outlaw, beginning to pace. Tell him we're shameful men, and rough as a sackful of nails. Warn him we fear no gallows. Jemmy dipped the quill in beet juice and continued scribbling. I'll tell him that you're terrible, folks. Aye, that's the ticket. Cutwater had begun gnawing away at a roasted pheasant, and his cheek swelled out as if he had a monstrous toothache. What about the king's soldiers, Billy? Now that the fog's lifted, they'll be following the lad like a trail of ants. Puts my spine a shiver. Faugh, exclaimed Hold-You-Nose Billy. Even rabbits get mixed up and lost in this forest. We're well hid, Cutwater. I'll warn Papa, Jemmy offered generously, that if you spy out a single uniform, you'll crack my neck like a chicken's. Prince Brat sat sullenly on a pile of moldy bedstraw. He glared icily at the whipping boy who had seized his royal title. And don't forget the reward, Billy, said Cutwater. We want the prince's weight in gold bangers, right? Tell the king that. Directed Hold-You-Nose Billy, in big letters. Now let me reckon out a safe spot to deliver the loot. Jemmy dipped the quill, but then paused. Oh, he thought, it's not enough to choose my words as if I were a prince. Show some high and mighty, Jemmy. Think like a prince. And here's a picture of Jemmy pretending he's the prince, writing the ransom note with the rest of them looking on. Think like a prince. Dimwits, he flared up. Catchpenny rogues, I will not be exchanged for such a trifle. My mere weight. A paltry treasure you could carry on a soldier. On a shoulder. How dare you insult me? Hold-You-Nose Billy's red eyebrow shot up in bewildered surprise. Insult you? A trifle? A prince is worth a prince's ransom. The eyebrows lowered as quickly as they had risen. No offense meant, lad. How would you calculate a proper ransom? A wagon load of gold at the very least, and jewels mixed in. As I'm alive, a wagon load? Cutwater gulped down the wad of fowl in his mouth. We did forget about the jewels, Billy. A wagon load it is, then, exclaimed the hairy outlaw. Prince Brat's mouth fell wide open at the whipping boy's nervy mischief. Hold-You-Nose Billy stood over Jemmy's shoulder and watched the words being scratched out. Finally, he said, Have you made your sign yet? Just about to, said Jemmy. With as much flourish as he could manage, he wrote, Your obedient son, Prince Horace. And that's the end of chapter 8.